So tonight I'm going to share about rest and relaxation to support your mindfulness practice. And I will go back and define what mindfulness practice is. So mindfulness is having the awareness that's able to see this body and this mind, exactly, not mine, but your own. Okay, I'm pointing to me because I'm me, but your own body and your own mind, exactly as they are, without changing them, with a stable and neutral mind. Okay, so this sounds like a very easy thing to do, but it can become difficult when we haven't had the proper rest, when we feel stressed and unhappy. And so tonight we're going to learn a little bit more about how to bring our mind into the appropriate state to support this practice. Okay, and some of the things we're going to do are going to incorporate some practice tonight, as I mentioned. So we will do some practice together and short practices, and we'll try different ones. Okay. So the first thing I wanted to do was to ask all of us here, how does our mindfulness practice go when we are tired or stressed? Feel free to just type a note in the chat. Susie's like, Linda's, okay. Feel free to put in the chat window if there's anything that you notice. Okay, so Asher, I fall asleep, okay? When you're tired or even when you're unhappy, when you're feeling irritated or stressed out, what generally happens when you're trying to practice? Delusional, okay? There's lots of delusion. The mind goes off and spins off into stories, perhaps. Okay, there might be some self-talk going on in there. Okay, so that's all part of delusion, which is a technical term. Karen, you're not delusional in the colloquial sense. Restless, okay, thanks, Catherine. You feel restless. So it's easy for us to see that when we sit down to practice, or when we enter into our practice and we start off already feeling tired or already feeling stressed or unhappy, the practice generally doesn't go well. And often a misconception out there in the world is, okay, so we also got caught in emotions. Okay, so can't focus. I just opened the chat. Okay, great. So a few more responses there. People often turn to mindfulness practice because they think that it's going to solve that problem. It's going to solve the things that we just mentioned. And it's going to make us happier. It's going to make us feel more energized. It's going to make the mind feel more powerful. And it can, if we understand how to approach the practice. And it can, if we're able to start off the practice, knowing where we're at, engaging where we're at, and then allowing ourselves to enter into the practice with the right introduction. Okay, so tonight we'll talk a little bit about this, and we'll do some practice. We're going to do a few things. I wrote down a few notes about my personal objectives of what I want to cover today. So I want us to be able to observe how when we rest, we are happier. Okay, and happiness is important in order to start off our practice. So when we're happier, we can practice better. We'll learn how restful practice, so resting within our practice, helps us to relax and be ourselves and be more natural during our practice, which is what we want to do. We want to be natural so we can see this body and mind as they are, right? And we want to understand that we need rest breaks, or we need some practice that is actually restful. So what I might do is lead us in a samatha practice tonight. Samatha is more of a practice where we're focused on one thing that we enjoy, and that purpose of that practice is to help the mind generate strength, to be happier, to be more able to be focused, to be more alert instead of scattered. And then today we can also look at sleep. Okay, so I know we can't control our sleep. Everyone would like to have, 8 hours of really good quality sleep, and not everyone is able to do that, and that might not be accessible, or it might not be needed for every single person. So we'll look at sleep and its importance, and we'll also practice what's called dynamic relaxation. And this is a type of relaxation where the mind is awake and the emotions and the body and the feelings are more relaxed. Okay. So let's start off with the first part of what I want to talk about, and that is being happy. I remember a very long time ago when I was in Thailand. It was about 15, 16 years ago. And I met one of my teachers mentors, you could say, not mindfulness mentors, but a healer. And he spent quite a bit of time with me one day when we went to his healing center, and he looked at me and he said, Salima, you don't have to have a reason to be happy. It's not hard to be happy. And this is quite true. If we really take stock of our day-to-day lives, we will see that the times when we are undergoing extreme unhappiness are less than the times when we're going through what feels maybe neutral or just a general ups and downs. So, some of us have lost pets within the last year or so. Some of you who I know very well have lost a pet, or had a parent or a child or a sibling who had gone through maybe a physical health issue. And those would be those big things. Okay, those are the big things. But those aren't happening every day. And even if they're happening, they're often happening in the background because guess what? We care about ourselves. Unfortunately, and this is the truth, we care about ourselves more than we care about anybody else out there. Okay, even if that other person or other being lives in our own home, we generally care about ourselves more. And so when we look at it from this perspective, it's clear that for most of our lives, we're operating in kind of that average up and down, and not the horrible downs, not those big, huge problems that tend to arise every once in a while, but they're not there every day. And so one thing that's important for us to remember is that we don't need a reason in order to be okay, to feel a baseline of happiness, just a baseline of happiness. If anyone here knows what I'm talking about, please put your hand up. Okay, just this sort of baseline feeling okay, right? Great. Okay, so this is not the I won the lottery happiness. This is just that general baseline of I'm okay right now. I'm doing okay. And we don't often take the time to notice that because it's something that eludes us. We actually are a little bit addicted to complaining. I'm guilty of it. I complain that I'm busy. I've got so much on my plate. I've got so much to do. If anyone knows me very well, they know that I'm always doing something. And so we often find that it seems like our baseline is this trough of unhappiness, but actually our baseline is often a sense of being okay. So let's just take a moment right now and just feel into that okayness. We're obviously not being chased by a tiger. We obviously have the ability to be here with the Mindfulness Society and be able to be sitting for about an hour together with all of us, doing something that's good for us, that's nourishing, that's good for our mind and our body. And so there's this feeling of we're in a safe space here. Okay, see if you can give yourself permission to just know that we're amongst friends. Our teacher, Jess, Jess, likes to say we're friends in suffering. Okay, so that means that we all go through our ups and downs, but we're friends. We all see that, okay, and we all see that in ourselves, and we accept that in ourselves, and we accept that even our friends in suffering, sometimes our friends in suffering aren't having a great day, and it's okay. So we can just feel that sense of safety, that sense of togetherness, okay? And if ever on a Sunday you're not feeling so okay, then tune in, because you'll get to see all these lovely people on your screen. Okay, so just starting with that very simple knowing and that very simple understanding is important. I wanted to share a little tidbit of something that happened when we were in Thailand. So a number of us from the Mindfulness Society and a number of us who practice and study together and have been studying together for a little while were able to go to Thailand for the purposes of meeting our teacher and our teacher's teachers and studying with some of the greatest masters of mindfulness that exist in our world today. And during that time we had a 4-day retreat. And during that 4-day retreat, some of us opted to wear a little red sticker on we had these little name tags. They were quite big name tags, but We all got Thai names, and then some of us opted to put a red sticker on the name tag, and the red sticker indicated to everyone around that we were keeping silence during those 4 days, that we were intending to make it a silent retreat. And the second day in, the teacher Ajahn Mali looked at us and she said, "Those red stickers aren't doing you any good. You should take them off." So, we ripped off those red stickers, and it was like the champagne cork came off of the champagne bottle, and we were all of a sudden talking and fraternizing with each other, and everything felt much more easy. And Jess confided in us, well, some of us, I don't know how many of us were around when he was telling us this. He said he went to Ajahn Mali and said, all of these students of mine, they're good friends, they really like each other, they get along. I'm afraid that they're just going to end up just chatting away and not doing their practice. And she looked right at him and she said, "Don't worry, I'll handle this." And she did handle it. And the next day, the third day, I remember she asked, how do you feel now that you don't have the red sticker on? And I saw my hand go up. I didn't even plan on putting my hand up. I don't usually ask questions or offer anything. But my hand went straight up, and obviously she asked me to give an answer. And the only thing I said was, "I feel happy." And she said, "Yeah, you need to be happy in order to practice well." So this comes not from me. This comes straight from the mouth of an incredibly powerful teacher in Thailand who is one of the greatest mindfulness masters alive today, the kind of master that has done the work themselves, has seen the results themselves, has decreased their suffering to the point where many people can't even fathom, and is able to take one look at you in an instant and tell you exactly how your practice is going and what you need to fix or adjust. So if she says we need to be happy, then who are we to argue with her? Okay, so I give you all permission tonight to be as happy as you can be. Okay, again, it's not the jumping up and down, winning the lottery type of happy. It's just that admission that I'm okay. I'm doing okay. All right, just take a moment and sense in right now if you're able to feel it again, because it's important, and I'm going to give us many opportunities to notice and sense what's going on internally. Okay, so I wanted to talk about being natural. Okay, when we are able to relax and rest, our practice, our whole demeanor is more natural. And we want to practice with an ordinary mind. The word in Pali is dhammada. It means ordinary. And it's important to have an ordinary mind because this is what we're supposed to be observing. We're supposed to be observing this body and this mind as they are, as ordinary as they are. Okay, not special, not able to go to a really quiet place or a really pristine place, or not able to kind of, throw away all of the defilements and be, shining and happy. In fact, if we're doing that, we're fudging the practice, and this goes against one of the principles of correct practice, right? We don't want to fudge or interfere with what's there. We want to see what's there. We want to know what's there. So let's take a moment and just get a sense of how we're doing right now. So get a feel for this body. Is there any tightness in the jaws? Is there any tightness in the shoulders? How's the back? Are we trying to be more relaxed? Are we trying to do anything? Are we seeing what's here right now? Sometimes when we just observe, the tightness loosens on its own, and this is optimal. This is what we want. We want whatever it is that we observe to be exactly as it is. And then we might notice that in the next moment it lets go by itself. It loosens or relaxes by itself. I'm going to guide us in a very short meditation. And so this is one of the ways, one of the modes in which we can bring about more rest and relaxation in our practice. So this would be under the bracket or the umbrella of samatha. Okay, samatha practice is like a meditation where we're using one particular object that we're observing, or we're giving the mind one particular task to observe in order to bring the mind into a place that feels happy, more restful, more easy. Okay, it also brings more clarity and more focus. So this is the practice that when I go and teach at companies, they like this practice the best. I don't know why, but they love the body scan. So we'll do a quick body scan. And in this body scan, what I'd like for us to be able to do is not to fix what we're observing, but just notice how the body is when we're observing it bit by bit as we go through. Okay. If something is tight, then our job isn't to straighten up and make it good. We're not supposed to be sitting up ultra straight. We don't have to have a particular posture. For anyone here who is new, however, I guarantee, however you are sitting is fine. If you are lying down, I recommend sitting up, because it is true that the mind can be in one of two places when it's not balanced. It can be restless and too active and too busy to be able to observe, or it can fall asleep. Okay, and some of you mentioned this when I first started, and I asked, how is it when you practice when you're stressed and tired? And at least one of you said restless, and at least one of you said falling asleep. Okay, so these are the two extremes that we don't want to plunge into, and that we often find ourselves plunging into when there isn't balance. So if anyone here, if you're off camera, I encourage you to come to a seated position. You don't have to be sitting cross-legged. You don't have to be sitting with your hands in any particular posture, okay? You can just let your hands rest wherever they are, okay? And you can be sitting on your bed, you could be sitting in a chair, sofa, on the floor, whatever you like, whatever feels comfortable. But it is best to be upright for this so that you don't slump into a sleep, okay? So if you'd like, you can keep your eyes gently open and just gaze down in front of you. You can gaze at your hands or whatever is directly in front of you in your lap. And I'd like for us just to start by taking a nice deep breath in. Feel free to lengthen your spine on the in-breath. You can draw your shoulders up if you'd like. To release some tension on the exhale, rotate the shoulders back and let the spine release. Let your whole body relax and be comfortable where you are. If your mind leaves where I'm guiding you to observe, then just gently know that the mind had left and gone off to think, see, hear, smell, taste, touch, feel. And then gently rejoin wherever we are in the body. And then notice again freshly. If your mind wanders away many times and that you're able to see that the mind had wandered away many times, you're excelling at the practice, okay? It's not a bad thing. So if your mind wanders off and you know that it wandered off, be happy. You're allowed to be happy. Remember, you're allowed to be happy. So we'll just start by seeing and sensing this whole body sitting here. We can feel the bend at the hips, perhaps the bend at the knees, bend in the elbows. We might notice the center of the body as it expands with each in-breath and relaxes with each out-breath. Notice if there's any trying to control the breath in any way, make it deeper or longer. Notice if there's a sigh. Notice if it's spontaneous. And just notice the top of the head, the forehead, the eyes, the ears, the face, the muscles of the cheeks, the inside of the throat, the shoulders, the arms exactly as they are. Notice the hands. Notice the spine. See if you get an image of any of these things, or if you feel into them, or neither. Feel the belly, once again, expanding when it expands, releasing when it releases. Feel how the bottom is resting against the surface underneath. Notice the thighs, the lower legs, the ankles, and the feet. And sense this whole body sitting once again. Feel free to take a nice deep breath if you'd like. And exhale. If your eyes are closed, gently bring them back to an open position. Notice if there's a feeling of this meditation ending. Notice if there's a change or a shift if the eyes are open now, what the mind is doing now that the eyes are open. Are the eyes looking at the screen, wanting to see? Is there a desire to keep the eyes closed? Is there a feeling that that is preferable to opening them? Is there a feeling that that's more relaxing or more comfortable? Okay, take a moment to notice how you're feeling now. I invite any of you to put in the chat area what this practice was like for you. It was very short on purpose. It was short so that it could be an introduction to your mindfulness practice, but not your entire mindfulness practice. If any of you would like to report that your mind was busy or you were able to notice the mind leaving wherever I was guiding you to observe, then that's great. Feel free to share that. If any of you were able to notice that multiple times, fantastic. Okay, Asher, your mind was racing. Okay, so you're able to see that the mind was racing. Short and very sweet. Okay, great. Scatters and returns. Gloria, great. Okay. So remember that the purpose of the mindfulness practice is to be able to see this body and this mind as they are, with a stable and neutral observation, a stable and neutral mind. So if you were able to notice the quality of your mind or where your attention went during this practice, then this was obviously a practice that was able to get you started into your mindfulness. Okay. But this practice is a samatha practice, meaning that you were given one particular task, and so your mind could rest with this task and give your mind the opportunity for clarity, for focus, okay? It doesn't mean that your mind is going to become happier automatically, but if you give yourself a samatha object, so for some of us it might be a body scan, for some of us it might be metta, or even remembering our own good actions, okay? It could be watching the breath. It could be something as simple as just opening and closing the hands, okay? But if we give ourselves a samatha practice that we enjoy, it could be a mantra, I forgot, it could be a mantra, any word or phrase that you like, okay? A lot of us practice with Buddha, which means one who knows. Any of these practices can be used as a samatha, and that can bring about, if you enjoy the practice, if you like it. So for example, Buddha might not be the right word for you. The right word might be ice cream sandwich. Okay, that might bring the happiness that you're looking for. Okay, and so if you allow your mind to just rest with that thing for just a little while, it can help you begin your mindfulness practice in a way that doesn't start off already stressed and tired. Okay, so it can snap us out of a mental fog. Okay, tiredness can come in two versions. One is mental tiredness and haziness and fogginess, and the other one is a physical tiredness, is the body actually needs the sleep or the rest. Okay, and so if it's that first version of tiredness where the mind feels kind of hazy and not fully awake, some of us feel like this early in the morning, some of us feel like this late at night, where we can no longer continue to work or continue to apply our mind to something because the mind just feels too tired. In some cases, it could be that the mind is just dull, it's disinterested, and it gets dull and bored and tired and hazy like that. This is a mental tiredness, and this is where the samatha practice can help dislodge that state, okay, of haziness. With the second one, and I'll talk about sleep later on, I don't want to induce sleep in the middle of my talk, so I'll talk about it at the end when you can then go off and go to bed if you want to. But the second kind is a physical tiredness, and the physical tiredness is really about sleep and getting the appropriate amount of sleep, or a nap if you need a nap. Okay. So any other feedback on the body scan? If anyone wants to share anything, I'll take a look at the, yeah, okay, so I had a couple of you say, yeah. All right, so you each had a little bit of a different experience, but one thing that you all noticed, those who responded, was that the thoughts didn't stop, okay? It is almost impossible for us to stop our thoughts during waking life, okay? In fact, I would say to anyone here who is new and who might believe that trying to stop thoughts is peaceful and relaxing, getting there is hell on wheels, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, okay? The only time that you can probably stop thoughts is during delta sleep, okay? During a particular phase of sleep that's actually quite short compared to REM and the other cycles. And so that's the only period of time where the thoughts kind of come to a still point. And so trying to get rid of thoughts is impractical. It's not a good use of your time. And I would recommend not trying to do that, okay? Instead, take your mind to a happier place, okay? And that's a really good way to introduce your mindfulness practice. All right. I wanted to share a little bit about when we are feeling those two extremes, okay? So sometimes there's that dullness, and sometimes we're feeling, which we just talked about, and sometimes we're feeling like the mind's racing and it's out of control. And this is one of the signs of depression, is the mind, what do they call it? There's a word for it that I forget right now. But when the mind cannot stop thinking. And what happens when the mind keeps thinking and thinking and thinking? It isn't that it suddenly decides, oh, I've been thinking too much, and it stops thinking. It just wants to keep on going. It just wants to keep on going. If anyone's had a small baby who's been overtired and won't go to sleep and just crying but won't go to sleep, it's like that. The baby's just in a loop of overstimulation, okay? And so what do we do when the mind is overstimulated like that? We have to stimulate the mind with something that it enjoys, but that is in a kind of a more relaxed kind of state. So for a lot of us, and those of us who were in Thailand, the majority of us who were in Thailand during this trip, practiced a ton of walking meditation, walking practice. Most of the community of practitioners, which is like hundreds of practitioners in Thailand who are studying with Luang Por Pramod, which is my teacher's teacher, are practicing walking meditation instead of sitting meditation. And so one of the really beautiful things about a walking practice is that A, you can't fall asleep, but B, it mimics the quality of mind that we have during the waking day. And that is a mind that is alert and is active. And so if we're going to come into a practice where we're expecting the mind to be alert and relaxed, and we've just gone through a very busy day or a busy morning, or we haven't slept very well at night, and we're intending to sit for 20 minutes, we come and sit down, and what happens is the mind is on this hamster wheel, and it's going and going and going and going. It's not going to settle in. It's not going to be able to become aware properly with stability, with that neutral and stable observation or mind, right? So we want to give the mind an opportunity not to go from 100 to 0, but rather go from 100 to maybe 80. And so in order to do that, we don't expect ourselves to come and sit still and then be able to observe and practice well. Instead, we might incorporate something that feels more fluid, that's moving. You might have noticed, and some of you might have been like, why is she going so quickly? During the body scan that we just completed a few moments ago, you might have noticed that I was going at a certain pace. I wasn't staying with one part of the body for a length of time. And the reason that I did that was I knew that if I stayed with a particular part of the body for any longer than 3 seconds or so, that your mind would absolutely go away, but it could also just drop into a sleep. Because what happens is when you're going all day, your mind is either going to continue going, or it's going to drop into sleep. Okay? So I would rather, in this case, your mind continue to go a little bit, but a little bit slower. Okay? So for those of you who haven't attempted a walking practice, I would highly recommend incorporating a little bit of walking practice into your everyday. And to start with, I would say 30 minutes would be the minimum that I would recommend. Okay. If you don't have the 30 minutes, what do? Are you out of luck? What happens? Is there no hope for you? Okay, so I'll give you a little easing into a walking practice. Okay, and that is you can use any movement. Okay. So, for example, when I'm sitting and waiting for something, I will often just sit and open and close my hand. Okay? That's a lot more movement than just sitting completely still and trying to expect my mind to be good and to be able to be alert and aware in the appropriate way. So if I do this, and I'm going to invite us all to practice a little bit with some movement right now. You can choose to do this if you have opened and closed your hand before and that's been a practice of yours before you've tried it and it's okay for you, then you can do that. And the way to do that is you can open your hand, just notice that it's open. You don't have to look at it. Close it into it doesn't have to be a tight fist, just closing it. Okay, just notice that it's like that. Notice that that motion is done. Then it's open again. Notice that it's opened. And now notice that it's closed. And now notice that it's open. And notice that it's closed. There's a gentleness to this kind of practice, okay? And I'm holding my hand up so you can see it on screen, but I would recommend you have your hand on your leg, in your lap, or somewhere comfortable for you. I just have my hand up here so you can see, okay? And it's just like that. When I first started with this practice, this was my kind of everyday life practice, okay? And when I first started with it, I was like, oh my God, my hand hurts, it's too much work, oh, it's effort. And it felt like there was so much effort going on. It was the same with the walking practice, it felt like there was so much effort. But if you told me to go walk in the woods, I could walk for 3 hours, no problem, right? Or if you told me to tap my finger or like snap along to a song, oh yeah, no problem. I could do that for like 5 minutes and I wouldn't even notice I was doing it probably, right? I do it with joy, okay? So there's a little bit of a hurdle, especially as we begin a practice that has movement to it. There's a little bit of a hurdle that will happen. And if we're able to kind of overcome that hurdle, just stay with it, stay on course, what we'll find is that there's a pattern and a rhythm and a feeling of it being like a comfort. Okay, it being like a comfort, almost like a mantra would be like a comfort if we're repeating a mantra that we enjoy over and over. Okay, so stick with it. It will feel like you're feeling all the tiny little micro movements when you're opening and the micro movements, like all the creakiness when you're closing sometimes. It will feel like it's a lot of effort, but stick with it for a bit. Okay, if you can get over that hurdle, I guarantee you that it becomes like a companion to you. The other thing that you can do, if this is too hard, and we can scale it back even more, is you can take your hand, and I'm just using this paper as an example, but you can use any surface. Okay, I like to use my knee or my thigh, and you can just tap your finger on that surface, just tapping. And so this is enough activity that you're staying in the game, that you're able to notice sometimes that the mind is with the practice, but it's also there in the background in a way. After a while, you'll kind of forget and remember, and forget and remember. And so what Gloria, what you wrote in the chat area about what your mind was doing during the body scan, it scatters and returns. If you notice that your mind is able to leave the object, okay, and come back to the object, whatever the object is that you've chosen, then that's great. Okay, I'm going to give us all a minute to practice this movement, okay? If you like doing a walking practice, and if you do a walking practice at home, I will also invite you to get up, and if you have the space in the room that you're in right now, you can go and do your walking practice for a minute, okay? I'll put on a timer, okay? And see if you can just start off with the very first few seconds remembering something that makes you happy, whatever that is. It might be your children, grandchildren, pets, a cute video of animals you saw. If you don't have any, then look at Asher's background of the llamas all gathered around behind him, okay? And just, if that doesn't make you happy, you're not human, come on, okay? Adorable, all right. And so I'll start the timer now, and I'll give you a minute just to do some movement practice. Okay, we'll do that together, and I'll let you know when we're done. So that was a minute. How many of you noticed the hurdle, the point where it was like, oh, this is excruciating, I don't want to do it anymore? Anyone noticed you got to that hurdle? Okay, Nicole, great. Asher, Adrian, good. Okay, so you know what that's like. Okay, you can see what that's like. It feels like there's some resistance to that practice. Okay, it doesn't feel comfortable. Okay, you might need 3, 4, 5 minutes. Okay, and you might need to slow down the pace of either the opening and closing or the tapping, okay, until it becomes like a feeling that it's a companion, and then it kind of moves into the background, and you're then able to notice the mind moving off and coming back with more ease, okay? So see if you can introduce a little movement into your practice. If you find that going from a busy life, busy day, to coming to sit and then expecting the mind to be good, to be able to concentrate, to be able to be alert and awake, are too difficult, okay? I do want to talk about sleep. So one of the other things that happened when we were in Thailand during the 4-day retreat that we were on, Ajahn Mali actually arranged, before we left and went to Thailand even, she asked Jess and Livy if any of us would like to go back to our hotel that we were staying at over the lunch hour to take a nap. And when I saw the email, like my jaw just dropped. I was like, napping in the middle of the day during a mindfulness retreat? Like what's going on? We're not kindergarten children? And then I thought, whoa, okay, so this is coming from Ajahn Mali. She's run these retreats so many times. She must know something that we don't. Okay, so Jess asked, how many of you want the nap time bus to go back? And so I was like, okay, I better take the nap time because I don't know what I'm going into. And then if I don't go for the nap, then that's fine. I don't have to. They actually arranged a driver and 2 rounds of vans to take us back to the hotel. If you could imagine the human resources required to organize that. Plus every day they would check in with us. The staff there would check in and say, are you sure you're going back? Are you sure you're going back? Are you sure you're going back? And if you're not, let us know so we're not waiting for you at the van. This was in the middle of the day, right after lunch, the time where you're not really supposed to nap. You're supposed to maybe go for a little walk and burn calories. So this spoke volumes to me that Ajahn Mali knew that we were from a different place, different culture, adjusting to a different climate, adjusting to a different time zone. We'd already been there for a number of days before we went for the retreat, but still adjusting to a different time zone, adjusting to a schedule where we were with her for 4 days doing mindfulness practice from, I think it was like 8 a.m. till, I guess the first bus was at 7:30 all the way till probably 6:30 at night, okay? And I can tell you that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to the hotel, but I'm just going to do my hand washing. I'm going to do my laundry. I'm not going to go lie down. But I actually did take a 12-minute nap a couple of times. And I can tell you that my practice benefited from taking that 12-minute nap. So please do not underestimate the power of rest and sleep in particular. Sleep is not an indication that we're lazy. Taking a nap doesn't mean that we're lazy. We do need to understand that during our practice, what we are doing is learning. And if you could imagine, or maybe even remember if this was you, going to school as a child and not having enough sleep or not having enough rest at night, how much would you be able to learn during your school day? Probably not very much. Some of you are school teachers or have been school teachers. You might have seen children who weren't properly resting or had so much stress at home. And how much were they able to learn? So in our mindfulness practice, we have to remember that we're using this mind as a very important tool of observation and learning and understanding. We're learning this body and this mind. We're learning what comes up naturally within this body and mind. So if we are to take care of this tool, that means that that tool has to rest sometimes. Have you ever driven a car nonstop for 5 years? Probably not, okay, because you probably had to go to sleep at some point. But if you took a car and ran it for 5 years straight, I guarantee that it would probably fail within the first year. So every engine, every tool needs to be maintained properly, and that includes our mind. And that means that we do need that rest and that downtime. There are all sorts of things that go on during sleep. We have the growth hormone that happens. We have the cerebrospinal fluid that cleans out the brain and sends all the toxins into the impurities into the bloodstream to be removed. We have memory and cognition that is improved because we have sleep. Okay, so when we're able to get adequate sleep, and if we aren't able to at night, then give yourself permission to, and if you have the ability to take a nap, then do so, okay? Try not to overwork yourself to the point where sleep is compromised. It's required to include this mind as an important tool for our mindfulness practice. So I'm not going to make us go to sleep tonight, okay? But what I will do, we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to lead us in a practice of dynamic relaxation. This is a term that was coined by Aldous Huxley, who some of you might remember his name. He is the author of Brave New World, which is a book that I had to read in high school. Maybe some of you had to as well. This author had been legally blind and learned to improve his eyesight to the point where he could drive cars. And he went on to write books about improving eyesight and all sorts of stuff. So dynamic relaxation, okay, Keelan's like, they still had us reading that in the 2010s. Okay, good to know. I don't feel that old then. So this term was coined by him because there is a particular exercise or activity that is recommended in the suite of activities and exercises that are given in order to, as part of the Bates method, in order to improve eyesight. And this one exercise or activity specifically, it's called palming. And I've done it many, many times. A couple of you will remember, because a couple of you know my vision educator, Elizabeth, and that's how I met a couple of you who are here tonight. She had led us in many, many, many palming sessions throughout the years that I've known her. And today I'm going to introduce the practice to you. Some of you might have done this with me in the past a long time ago. I haven't done it in a long time. So we're going to do it today. And this is going to be a way for the body to experience a relaxation, but the mind to stay alert and awake. And this is very possible for us to do, okay? I'll give us a couple of minutes to set up. If you are like me and sitting at a desk, what I would recommend is to grab a book or a couple of books to put on top of the desk so that if you put your elbows out in front of you, they are quite high. This upper arm would be parallel to the desk. If you're sitting at a sofa or on your bed or something like that, please go ahead and grab a cushion or a couple of big cushions or pillows so that you can put them flat against your chest and hinge your upper arms over the cushion, okay? I'll give everyone a couple minutes to set up. If you need to move location, that's fine. You don't need to be seen on the screen, okay? As long as you can hear me is fine. So just finding yourself whatever you need, whatever's appropriate, okay? And I'll talk us through this. So I'll give us just about a minute to get settled in. This practice often is done while sitting at a chair, at a desk. It can also be done anytime if you're sitting on your bed or on the floor. It's good to have something against your back so that your back is supported. So if you're sitting in an office chair, then put yourself right into that office chair, okay? So your butt is butted right up into the back of the, okay, Nicole, I love all the pillows. It's great, okay, great. So yeah, you wanna have some back support here, okay, that's ideal. All right, so what we'll do is we'll set up and I'll guide you through. Even if you think you know what's coming up, please do not try and rush ahead, okay, especially at the end. So I'll invite us just to start by warming up our hands, okay? So you're just gonna rub your hands rather quickly. You might start feeling some warmth between your hands, okay? And once you start feeling your hands are warm, you're going to take them apart ever so slightly. You might notice a bit of a field of, you might feel a vibration there, okay? Just notice that vibration if you feel it, okay? It's okay, don't worry, Karen, I'll put your hand down. Okay. Some people's gestures are on, so okay, there we go. Okay, so now what I want us to do is you're gonna take both of your hands. I'm just gonna show you with one hand so I can see you. You're gonna take both of your hands and put them over your eyes. You wanna cup over the eyes. Yes, take off your glasses. So you want each of your palms over the eyes. The palms should be right over the eyeball without pressing. Okay, if your palms are at your upper cheeks, lift them up so that the palms are over the eyes. So you want the palm right over the eye, okay? Fingertips are going to be up towards your hairline. And you want enough space between your palm and your eye that you could blink so there isn't this pressure or pushing into your eyes or eyeballs, okay? Now you might notice that the light that was in the room that you could see is now gone and there's darkness here. Feel free to take a deep breath if you'd like. Feel free to relax the shoulders a little bit more. Ideally, your spine is fairly straight, but if you do need to be bent over a little, then try and push your bottom behind you so that you're leaning kind of in a straight line. This ensures that the blood flow that's going to your head is going in a straight line. Give yourself permission to feel how the palms feel against the skin of the face. Feel the warmth. By cutting out the visual sense here, we are cutting out about 80 to 90% of the stimulation that comes into our thinking brain. Let's take a moment and just notice the shoulders. Give them permission to release a little bit. And now notice this whole body as it's sitting. If your feet are on the floor, then notice the feeling of the feet being supported by the floor. Notice the backs of the legs, the backs of the thighs and the bottom as they are supported by the surface under you. Once again, noticing how the hands feel against the face and how the face and the eyes feel, having the hands, the palms of the hands over the eyes. Allowing the attention to go inward. Allowing the mind to be awake and yet at ease here. You might become very aware of the breath. You might become very aware of the quality of the mind, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations. You might be aware that the mind is still thinking, and allow it to think. Allow it to be aware of whatever it is that is your experience here and now. Just let everything be as it is, and allow your mind to be the observer of this body and this mind as they are, with a stable and neutral observation. I'll give us 1 minute of silence so we can simply be and rest for a few moments. So that's been just about a minute, keeping your hands where they are. Feel free to take a deep breath. Notice the expansion at the belly. Exhaling out, allowing the whole body to relax. Keeping your eyes closed, very slowly and very gently begin to release the hands from around the eyes, keeping the eyes closed. As the eyes are still closed, you may begin to notice more light coming in through the closed eyelids, You may notice a coolness or freshness on the face. You may notice the breath might feel cooler. Notice if the mind feels any different. And very gently, without trying to see or look at anything in particular, gently blinking, open your eyes. Just noticing how the mind feels in this moment, how the body feels in this moment. Noticing what the awareness feels like in this moment. How are we doing? All right. So this gave us just a very small mini rest. You can practice this palming exercise for a minute like we did. You can practice this palming exercise for 10, 30, 50, 80 minutes, whatever you like. But it's really meant in this case for it to be a way for us to generate a little bit of rest and to bring our awareness inward and to give us the opportunity to feel a little bit refreshed. And what I would recommend for most of us, after an exercise of palming like this, we might sit for just a minute or so, but this would be a really good time to go and do either your walking practice, okay, if you need to get into your day, okay, or go to sleep, okay. So this can also be a very nice precursor to sleep. All right. There's much more that I wanted to share with you today, but I will leave it at that, okay. I wish all of you a very diligent, happy, restful, and easy practice. May all of us practice well, practice to the end of suffering. May all of us be happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Jen. I'm sure she has some announcements to share.
Thank you, Salima. Definitely feeling incredibly relaxed, but my body feels so relaxed. Loved that last exercise and really appreciated all the tips and opportunity to practice a few different things tonight.